Hello, this is a special edition of Salvaging the Titanic. We're doing this on a Tuesday, the day after some of the bigger stuff that went down with our marriage. We're doing this because we've had a lot of feedback, not necessarily in DMs, but in conversation, in chats, and in replies to things that have been posted on either of our pages. A lot of strong feelings about things. So we're going to do this special edition. It's called The Absolutes.
The absolutes, and what we're talking about here are statements that include never, always, ever, forever, etc. We do 100% appreciate your guys' input and personal anecdotes, the experiences that you've had. We understand that no two relationships are the same. So when it comes to sharing these things, we just ask that you please do your best to refrain from speaking in these absolute statements because, as a matter of fact, based on facts, they just aren't true. There's never a never situation, you know what I mean? Or an always or a every time. And we're kind of living proof of that. And we're not the only ones. We just happen to be one of the few couples out there who are talking about it.
Yeah.
That's why it seems so rare, because people just don't talk about it. So that's why we're doing this.
To say the marriage will never be the same, well, we're hoping it's not. Because what we've had, we've truly unlocked our open and honest conversation with each other.
Which is something we were lacking. So I honestly hope that we never have what we had before, because it was not the oneness that a husband and wife should have. The happiness that we dreamed of when we said I do, we didn't have.
We didn't
that.
even start there. I mean,
we didn't even start.
You've been watching these episodes. You know from episode 1, we didn't even really start there. We started with a little bit of resentment and issues, and we let them build. And that's what we've been driving at with the communication and the understanding and the openness and the honestness of the relationship.
Oh, and we will say that we do have notes for this one because it's kind of we want to keep it concise. We don't want to go overboard. We're here, and our marriage is better than what it ever was. That's the God honest truth. And it's because of the realizations that we had after the affair. It's because of the choices that we made together and individually after the affair.
So just let go of all the crap, all the suitcase full of resentment and bitterness, and chose to forgive each other and rebuild our relationship from the ground up. At no point did we decide to do this for the kids. I cannot state that enough. I said it the last episode. I'm going to say it one more time for the cheap seats. We are telling you right now that there is nothing we did. There's nothing we're doing or that we did that we said, okay,
for the sake of the kids,
for the sake of the children. I've lived as a child and when my parents were married and they stayed together longer than they probably should have because, for the sake of
the kids,
the finances and for the kids, and it wasn't a good home. It wasn't a good situation.
So even though knowing that whether we got divorced or stay together, it would impact the kids in some way, it wasn't a decision-making point for us.
No,
because we knew that we would do whatever.
With one another and said, "Hey, the kids have nothing to do with you and I.
They have to stay out of this decision.
They have to stay out of this decision.
We have to choose this, whatever it is that we're gonna choose." And this is how we spoke to each other. Like, whatever it is we're gonna decide, it has to be because it's what I want, what you want, and what we want collectively.
It can't be about the kids, because the kids aren't going to run in and be like, hey, fix your stuff, fix your marriage. It's not going to happen. And it's not for the children we did this. We both love our children. All 5 children, we love every one of them. And nothing was going to change that. My relationship with them, her relationship with them.
We even talked about if we did go the route of divorce, that he would come over in the mornings to help, with the boys.
To keep the routine the same way.
The boys, he wakes up with them every morning. He makes them breakfast. He spends time with them, and he lets me sleep in. That was never going to change. We already talked about plans of if, he would come over at night to help me put the boys to bed, because Max is so used to Dad putting him to bed. That was something that wasn't going to change. So again, we discussed what happens if we go this route, what happens if we go this route. But we did not at any point calculate how the kids would be affected in our decision to stay together. So with that said, what does forgiveness look like? after the betrayal of infidelity. It looks like it never happened. I feel like it never happened.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I feel like it never happened, and that's
And
the
that was
thing.
based on a decision, not based on a feeling. It wasn't like, okay, I feel like I can forgive you, or I feel forgiven, so I had to make the decision to accept his forgiveness, which didn't even happen the first day. It was like, you forgive me? Let me think about that. I have to see if I can forgive myself for this, because I screwed up.
Yeah, and my decision was to choose to forgive her. And when you choose to truly forgive someone, then you can't use that. You can't say, okay, I choose to forgive you, and then use that as ammunition to beat them over the head every time something doesn't go your way or you get upset. That's not forgiveness. That's not true forgiveness.
So there shouldn't be any lingering feelings.
All these statements I keep seeing about forgive but never forget, then that's not truly forgiving. If you're going to forgive someone, then you're going to have to let it go. When you say I choose to forgive but I don't forget, that means you're not letting it go. And
That means it's always on the back of your mind.
that right there
wondering-
is going to eat you alive. That right there is just going to be a black mark on you, and it's just going to keep you in a spot you never want to be in. I wouldn't wish on anyone.
So there's true forgiveness. Looks like there's zero lingering feelings, or thoughts, or insecurity. There's no heightened sense of doubt or fear. The spouse who cheated doesn't feel guilty on a daily basis, or needing to treat the other spouse with some kind of special care, like, thank you, honey, for forgiving me. I'm not worthy of your love. You shouldn't feel that way.
You can't hang it over their head.
The spouse who was cheated on shouldn't be feeling insecure, or
Neither
needing to check private
I don't
messages.
check any messages, any social media of hers. I don't have access to any of that. I mean, I could have
he
access.
does have access, but
I don't check it. I don't care to check it, because
and if
when
you
you
did,
have
I
a
wouldn't
truly open, honest relationship, then
You're sharing everything
You're
with
sharing
your spouse.
everything. So there's no secret anything. There's no.
basically life is going to go on as if it never happened.
That's what true forgiveness is going to feel like.
And look like.
And look like. Because if you continue to hold it over the person's head,
You didn't really forgive them.
you didn't really forgive.
And imagine if you had forgiven me, but you were holding it over me, like treating me suspiciously anytime I would go out, which I've gone out a few times, I wouldn't be happy. I would be feeling like,
Wardened
He doesn't
or
trust me.
burdened over or whatever. And that's not something I want to do either, because,
in the past
it's not
I
good.
actually received advice from a counselor after I was cheated on, that if I felt the need to check on my spouse's text messages or emails or social media account, that was okay. What I learned was, sure, it's okay, but that's not building trust. Me feeling the need to do that and always checking in on them, it didn't feel good. It felt wrong, and it felt like I was never going to trust him, because how long was it going to take before the feelings of trust came? So something we realized in this whole thing is that it's not a feeling. It's not a feeling.
It's a choice.
It's a choice.
Forgiveness is a choice. And talking about trust is a choice. We often hear that broken trust is one of the hardest things to repair. We've heard that about 1,000 times already in the last day. There will never be fully be restored, and it's a long and hard road to recovery, and that will never be 100%. Well, I'm here to tell you otherwise. I'm here to tell you that it's not. Once you choose to trust them, once you choose to truly forgive them and let it go, and choose that, it's easy to choose trust. We're not telling you. We're here to tell you that trust is a choice, in the same way that the real love and forgiveness are a choice. These are not feelings we want to that we're waiting to magically appear. They're here. I trust her. She trusts me, because we talk openly and honestly about everything. And giving back trust is easy. And I understand. I've had a few people talk about, I trusted this person, and we tried to work it out, and then they cheated on me again. No one's saying, and neither of us are saying, stay in a bad relationship. Neither of us are saying if you're being abused or you're being emotionally abused.
Or if you're married to someone who is a repeat offender.
Yeah, repeat offender.
This is not what we're talking about.
We're not talking about that.
These are people, if somebody that has an addiction who's going to constantly go out behind your back and they just can't help themselves, that's a totally different scenario.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about.
That the other thing that the people have commented is like, well, you guys should have talked, conversation should have been had before getting to the point of an affair.
Our conversation was broken.
Let's be clear here. Our conversation was practically non-existent. We talked about superficial things. So if we can't even talk about like, hey, when you discipline the kids in this way, I think that's wrong and you should take this approach because they need X, Y, Z.
Communication.
We can't even communicate that. You really think I'm going to communicate like, hey, I'm feeling lonely? Because, you know, that requires vulnerability. And when you're not communicating, you're not being vulnerable with each other. Vulnerability is the scariest thing. It was one of the scariest things for both of us in this relationship. We like treaded lightly, like it felt scary. So that's kind of how we ended up where we ended up, where we weren't communicating, we weren't being vulnerable with each other. We were both protecting ourselves to a certain extent. And we were just kind of chugging along as best we could, trying to make the best of it. And the best of it sucked. I felt miserable for years. I did communicate that. And to be honest, what state were you in emotionally during the majority of our marriage?
Pretty much closed off. I was pretty much closed off and didn't really communicate any of my emotions other than anger and frustration when I was that way, or if I was happy, you know, obviously I'd smile and show happiness, but nothing below the surface. So, you know, that was an issue I'm working on, or I've worked on and have been still working on now. What we're here to tell you is this isn't the end of this isn't going to be the story of how good we're done. Woohoo, we made it. This is going to be that we're continuing to work. It's something you have to be open to and work on every day.
Be consciously aware.
And be consciously aware of your partner and how things are going and what you're feeling, and being honest with yourself. I mean, I understand all these personal experiences, and I get it. The relationship didn't work out. And I'm not saying that our relationship is the typical relationship, that it's the typical situation.
And we know already that there's some of you out there who are going to be like, yeah, we'll see what happens in 6 months. We'll see what happens in a year, and so on and so forth. We get it.
We get it. We understand.
We get it. This is not typical.
Yeah.
We aren't special. We're not special.
And I'm sure a lot of you are like, are they really happy, or are they making the best of it? This isn't us making the best of it. And the easiest scenario, and we talked about this in our rough conversations that we'll get into in the next episode.
On Monday,
is that the easiest decision would be to split up. Then we wouldn't have to deal with any of it. We wouldn't have to talk to each other.
We wouldn't have to have the hard conversations.
We wouldn't have to have any hard conversations. Just be like, I'm done, you're done, cool, I'm out. And that would have been easy.
So I can say that without a doubt, I'm happier than I have ever been in our marriage.
So am I. And you know, we still have moments where we look at each other, you know, and say, man, this is our life. This is our life. This is what was going on.
This is what we could have had.
This is what we could have had, and being angry that we didn't do this earlier, and that we could have had 8 years of this instead of, you know,
the last couple months.
The last couple months, and wasting all that time that we've been together, and going through, you know, a very emotional event to get to this point. And
we hit the iceberg.
We hit the iceberg hard, and you know,
the boat sank.
Yeah, all the way to the ground. Nothing.
There was where we were at when shit hit the fan. It was the end of our relationship.
Yes.
And it was easier to walk away.
Yeah, it would have been so much easier.
And for me.
So much easier for both of us to walk away from this and figure out how to co-parent. How to just be co-parents.
But our conversation after that was like, well, what do you wish?
Yeah. Like, what do you want? What do you want from this marriage? What do you want from this relationship? What do we want from each other? And what do we expect as humans, as people?
And I gotta say that what we wanted was to be happy. Who doesn't want to be happy? Yeah. But I can say that I didn't expect to be this happy this soon. This caught me by surprise.
We realized that we wanted to be happy, but we also realized that we wanted to be happy with each other, which is one of the first decisions that we made together that led us here. It is not only are you choosing to be happy, but you're saying, okay, not only do I want to be happy, I want to be happy with you. So,
and what do we need to do to get there?
Where are we at now, and what do we need to do to get there? And then that takes a level of honesty and vulnerability and so many other things to get to that point, to say, okay, where did I mess up? where in the relationship did I mess up? And take the responsibility of yours, because every relationship.
This is a good point, a good moment to interject that at no point did I look at Mark and say, this is your fault. Yeah. I did this because you treated me like this, because you made me feel this way. And
again, in so many posts that I've put on Facebook now to respond to people, at no point did Raquel blame me for the infidelity. She took 100% responsibility for that. But what I'm saying to you is, and to what we talked about with each other, is that for me to believe that what got her there was solely on her. That she just had all these feelings and I was doing all the right stuff and, I was husband of the year, it is naive and irresponsible, because it takes two people to be in a relationship. It's 100% me and 100% her. And it was 100% both of our faults.
I want to say
individually
this.
that got us to where we were.
I thought about not saying this, but to be honest, I understand a lot of people that have been cheated on feel like they had no part in what their spouse did to them. I can understand that. I too have been cheated on in the past. I was pregnant when my then husband cheated on me. I know what it feels like. Even then, I took a moment to say, what did I do to deserve this? I think it's natural to ask that. Most people come to the conclusion of, I didn't do anything to deserve this. I did my part. I did great. Reality is, if you forgive this person, right, and they turn around and do it again, or they start mistreating you, you know what's your responsibility?
Delete.
Allowing them to continue to treat you this way, allowing them to continue to cheat, not setting those boundaries clear, that's on you. And it sucks, and I'm sorry to have to burst this bubble, but it is on you. You are responsible for how you allow others to treat you. That's on you. So that's, if nothing else, you have to acknowledge that you are responsible for allowing this person to treat you this way.
We settled into a mediocre, special edition, mediocre half-ass marriage. We settled for that. We allowed that to be where our baseline was.
But we didn't even realize that that's what we had.
But at the time, we didn't realize that's what we had until we figured out how to be open and honest and talk to one another.
Like truly open and honest.
And truly forgive one another for all the crap that had been building up over the years. So if you settle and are allowing yourself to settle, then that's your responsibility. I mean, you're an adult. If you look at your spouse and you're like, let's talk, or let's make this happen, make this better, and they don't want to go for it, or they continue to do have infidelity, or continue to
just mistreat you, whether physically or emotionally
mentally, whatever the case may be. You as an adult, kids or no kids, I mean, we have 5, and we were talking about walking away from each other and figuring out how to be co-parents. So if you have kids, no matter what the situation is, I mean, if you settle, then that's your responsibility too. You can't take no responsibility in that.
Guys, we realize that this isn't the norm. This isn't, I mean, maybe it is and people just don't talk about it, but it seems to not be the norm. It did surprise us too that it was actually really easy to get to where we are right now. And it was because of the choices we made to communicate, to trust, to forgive.
Once we decided to start openly talking to each other and to say, okay,
not
walk around being afraid of one another and being scared to say something to one another, and we just let it all out, and then we decided to forgive each other for the crap that we've done in the past, forgive each other for what happened right then, and decided to trust one another again. Everything else fell right into place.
And yeah, the conversations themselves were really difficult. And we're going to get into it.
Next episode, we're going to get into
the conversations we had. So you guys can understand how open and honest and real we had to get with each other to get to where we are now. Vulnerability was the key. And that's something that, again, we both previously completely refused to do. And he didn't even know that I refused to be vulnerable. And he never acknowledged to me that he refused to be vulnerable. But I could see it. I could tell that he was emotionally closed off. Again, I would make comments like, someday you're going to have to open up to me emotionally. we both discovered that vulnerability was the special key that we were missing, to the ingredient that we were missing to make all this work.
And we're not trying to negate anyone's story. We're not trying to say that your story is wrong or that
you did the wrong
thing. We're not judging anyone. Your story is your story. We're telling ours, and this is our story. And I understand a lot of people are going to be like, well, whatever, it's crap.
Sure, we'll see.
Sure, we'll see. But we're telling you that it's not a situation where we're just trying to fake it or trying to
save
face or anything. Because honestly, if we wanted to save face, we could have just shut up
and
not done one
this
in the
series.
video. Not even added that into the video. Just the good years, the bad years. We rocked some stuff.
We could have
stuff
just
happened.
not done this series at all.
Stuff
We just kept
happened.
it
Stuff happened,
between us.
and now we're back. Or we could, like she said, we could have just not done the video at all and not aired out any of this. But we're trying to help people. We're trying to help people that
we just want
possibly.
to give hope to people who find themselves in these situations, or maybe you're not in the situation now, and maybe in the future you start seeing the red flags that we've talked about in some previous episodes,
Or maybe,
and you're like, wait, I remember how the Mertzes went, and I don't want that.
Or maybe you're in a good relationship now, and this brings about conversation or communication with you and your spouse to take your conversation to a different spot, or to think about things, or to define your boundaries, or to understand your partner's boundaries.
So again, the absolute statements, guys, we encourage you to do your best to basically keep them out of your mouth. On our threads, on our feeds, just in your personal life, guys, because they get you nowhere. They usually start fights. Absolute statements usually start a fight between a husband and wife. You always do this, or you never do this. You're just going to end up in a fight. It's not real. So we're here to show you that those odds, the absolutes that people are always talking about, we defied them. And not because we're special in some way, but we stumbled upon and figured out when our relationship was rock bottom. We hit rock bottom.
Rock bottom.
And so at that point it was like, walk away, or do we try to figure out what the heck we did and see if we can be happy?
And I challenge you to talk to your spouse. I challenge you to talk to your spouse in an open and honest conversation. And if you find yourself where you feel like you can't forgive, or
like even in a hypothetical scenario,
even a hypothetical, if you're forgiving your spouse is impossible to you, then I would check your heart. I would say check yourself, because
in the words of what's his name, John Christ, check your heart.
Yeah, check your heart. Because
if you are a Christian, especially, check your heart, read your Bible, because the Bible verses on forgiveness,
we could do a whole nother
do
special
not
edition.
say forgive but don't forget.
Yeah.
The Bible verses on forgiveness are like, forgive and forget, it's in the bottom of the sea like it never happened. Your sins are washed white as snow. There is no, God doesn't hold it over you. Like,
forgive.
Hey, you screwed up, so if you screw up again, I'm gonna tack it on.
Forgive like Jesus would forgive, and that's what the Bible talks about. And keep, if your idea of forgiveness is keeping a scoreboard, you've already lost. You've already lost, because keeping a scoreboard, one for me, one for them, one for me, one for them. When's it end? What's it end with?
So we want to invite you to start a conversation with your spouse. If anything we said triggered you, and I even hate saying the word triggered you, but if anything you said caused a strong emotional reaction in you, talk to your spouse. Go sit with them and be like, look, these motherfuckers over here are talking about you can cheat and have a better marriage. I think that's bullshit because blah, blah, blah. Yes, I'm being real. So if that's where the conversation needs to start, go for it. Make it happen.
Whatever.
And then listen to what your spouse has to say.
Whatever gets you talking is what I'm saying.
And make sure you discuss your boundaries with each other.
And I know a lot of people, I know Raquel tells me all the time with my beard I look scary, but if you want to DM me, you can DM me and I can talk to you. I mean, I'll talk to you as long as I need to.
You can DM me too.
You can DM her too, but if you want to DM me and ask me how I got here, or how I'm doing, or how, I can forgive and forget and all this other stuff, or trust, I will tell you. I will flat out tell you. And we're going to get into it in the next episode, obviously, because we're going to talk about the hard conversations and the hard realizations and getting back to a point to where we can trust one another and forgive one another. And
the fact that it's not, I just want to reiterate, trust what you hear and read in every article. I did not read one article that said that trust could quickly and easily be restored if you X, Y, Z. Did you read anything like
There's
that?
no.
Because everything was like,
look,
it's a long, hard road.
We're not telling you. There's no secret.
Godspeed.
There's no formula that we've made or concocted in a lab here. We're telling you what's worked for us. We're telling you what's worked for us. We're telling you that this is what has salvaged our marriage and salvaged our relationship. So if you and your significant other go about it a different way, no one's telling you you're wrong. Neither of us are saying you're wrong. We're just telling you that this is for the people out there that possibly are at that breaking point or at that bottom, the boat's sinking. And it's either jump ship
or repair.
And we want to get people to understand that we're trying to help other people
Bring hope
to them and tell them that it can be fixed.
and you can actually be happier. I know I posted, does an affair necessarily or always lead to divorce? And the answer to that for us was no, that it can actually lead to a better marriage, which doesn't mean that we're encouraging, have an affair to get yourself a better marriage.
No.
It simply means that even after an affair,
you
can be even happier than you were.
We're telling you what has happened to us and trying to get to you before you get to that point. We're not advocating for you to run out and have an affair and say, all right, I had the affair, let's fix this. What we're saying is,
I hit the iceberg.
I hit the iceberg without you. You were asleep at the wheel. I hit the iceberg. No, we're not telling you
Wake
to do
up.
that.
Are you awake now?
Are you awake now?
No, guys. I know we joke about it, and it seems so like we don't care, but it's because of where we're at right now. Like, I feel, honestly, guys, I feel so blessed to have a husband that loves me the way that Christ loves the church. The sacrificial love, I'm sure he'd be willing to die for me.
Yes.
I'd die for you too, baby. I'd take a bullet for you. But no, real talk. We understand this isn't the norm. You don't normally hear about this. This isn't the professional advice you tend to run into.
And obviously, we get for every one of our stories, everybody's got 25 stories on top of our one story about how they were screwed over. And they gave it a shot, and they still got screwed over, and life sucks, and blah, blah, blah. I got all that. I do.
I also want to say that both of us, me, before I was ever cheated on, I remember telling my best friend then, Ashley Aragi, I remember telling her, if I find out he's cheating on me, mind you, I was pregnant, I was like, I would leave him in a heartbeat. There's no way in hell, heaven, earth, whatever, that I would stay with him or forgive him. Like, I don't care. I'm walking away. I'm taking half his money. That was me.
And obviously, for me, when I thought about it in the past, it was one of my absolutes. One of those.
It was one of those boundaries. Like, do not cross.
Nope,
yes.
You ain't doing it. So, I was always like, I'd walk away. But the thing of it is that until you're in the situation or until you're faced with that, you don't really know what you're going to do. Mm-hmm.
Or how you're going to feel.
But
I can say from experience that you feel hurt, you feel betrayed, you feel like you lost your best friend, but you also feel like you still love them. And it's such like a conflicting emotion. Is that how you felt?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you still love the person. You still love and care for the person that you had all this time with. It's just that there's that immediate sense of, betrayal and all of that you've got to let out. And once you let that out and then you look past it and say, okay,
but what would make me happy?
But what do I want? What would make me happy? What do I want? And if the answer is still to be with that person.
What's your fantasy scenario?
Yeah, and if it's still to be with that person and try and figure it out, then the only way to get there is going to be open and honest communication, vulnerability, and true forgiveness.
And
true forgiveness, not fake forgiveness where you forgive them, but then you're going to hold it over their head for the rest of their life. And then once you forgive, let me tell you, from experience, because I keep getting those in my messages, from experience, once you truly forgive, trust will come easy. It's easy to
in
trust.
Our experience.
In our
experience.
It's not
that in every scenario.
And it's
in
not.
Our experience.
And this isn't. Again, we start things with atypical because this obviously isn't the typical situation. This isn't the typical answer. Your typical answer is, bitter messages on Facebook and, I hate this person and I hope they die or whatever the thing may be for you. and then you walk away and start again. But if you don't address your crap, your baggage, then what are you carrying to the next relationship? Or are you going to be a monk or a nun for the rest of your life and never have another relationship, never trust and never love again? Which I hope no one does. So with that, we will see you on Monday on the normally scheduled time.
But this felt like important, like we needed to address
this felt important, so we could address this now, so that
I'm sure this video ran longer than we wanted.
I'm sure.
So we're going to go. Thank you for listening and watching. Feel free to private message either one of us or post a question or comment in the thread.
Yeah.
We wish you well. We wish you a happy marriage
answer
and a happy life.
anything that you ask.
All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.